the gift of gab. Who's really for free speech these days? You know, decades ago, the left-wing American Civil Liberties Union used to be the prime defender of unpopular, offensive, and yes, hateful speech. In grade school, we were taught about how the ACLU's principled lawyers so firmly believed in the First Amendment that they represented actual Nazis in the famous Skokie case. The Jewish ACLU lawyer in that 1977 Supreme Court case, a man named David Goldberger, received death threats and was attacked as traitorous for representing a group of National Socialists. They successfully sued the city of Skokie, Illinois, which sought to ban the Nazis from peacefully protesting in their town.
Legal counsel to the ACLU here in Chicago took the case upon himself, and actually I think initially thought this would be a pretty easy case.
It seemed to me like a slam dunk. I felt that I was representing the First Amendment. I had no pause about representing a Nazi or a Klansman or a communist. If they can't speak, the next thing is I won't be able to speak.
Punishing lawful, nonviolent speech at any point in time undermines free speech, of course, but stifling such speech before it happens is especially dangerous. America's founding fathers were particularly concerned about such prior restraints on free speech and wrote the First Amendment to protect against preemptive censorship by the government. As David Goldberger explained, quote, "If the government can prevent lawful speech because it is offensive and hateful, then it can prevent any speech that it dislikes." Unfortunately, our founding fathers, as prescient as they were, failed to anticipate the rise of massive Silicon Valley companies that monopolize the public square. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Google, and other social media essentially serve as government proxies. So do a wider universe of technology companies, telecoms, and financial companies that have formed a de facto social credit system to penalize unpopular opinions and political expressions. This systematic viewpoint-based discrimination is inherently un-American. At least that's what we were once taught. But in 2021, principled free speech advocates are few and far between who will defend free speech even if they abhor it. The ACLU is AWOL as big tech and big government crack down on a broad spectrum of dissidents. This includes Christians, pro-lifers, opponents of transgenders in sports and school bathrooms, Jewish critics of Sharia law, Trump supporters, Proud Boys, and America First nationalists who support an immigration moratorium or joke about George Floyd. So where are the Republicans? Well, on March 5th, Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott declared war on big tech censorship.
The United States of America was built on freedom of speech and healthy public debate. Big tech's efforts to silence conservative viewpoints is un-American, un-Texan, and it is unacceptable, and pretty soon it's going to be against the law in the state of Texas.
Amen. Amen.
That declaration followed an earlier proclamation signed by Governor Abbott to protect free speech on college campuses.
Some colleges are banning free speech on college campuses. Well, no more, because I'm about to sign a law that protects free speech on college campuses in Texas.
Well, that all sounds great, but do these politicians really mean what they say? Just last week, Governor Abbott launched a shocking attack on free speech alternative platform Gab.com that defies all principle and logic.
Anti-Semitic platforms like Gab have no place in Texas and certainly do not represent Texas values. What does represent Texas values is legislation like this by Representative King and Representative Copeland that fights anti-Semitism in Texas.
It's a bizarre and puzzling spectacle. The Texas Republican Party itself has a Gab account and backs the platform. So why this hostile declaration against a Christian-owned business fighting Silicon Valley, especially when every liberal big tech platform banned the President of the United States? The gift of Gab is that it stands almost alone among American social media companies that walk the walk of true free speech advocacy. How far we've come from the Skokie case to now, where blanket accusations of anti-Semitism serve as a de facto prior restraint on the speech of millions of Americans, something that was unimagined by our founding fathers.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.